Welcome to Heroes Have Wings, the podcast that gives a voice to the unsung heroes of Army aviation. I'm your host, Jason Santiago. For the Army aviators, crew chiefs, and flight medics who put it all on the line in the heat of battle, this is their opportunity to share untold stories of courage, sacrifice, and unbreakable will. From their beginnings to the battlefield, you hear about their hardships, the moments of doubt, and how they overcame impossible odds to save lives. These warriors didn't just fight for survival, they put others above themselves, embodying the true spirit of heroism and selfless service. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Heroes Have Wings. Today's guest, Dereck Bible, is no exception. Raised in small-town Texas, where life was about challenges, adventure, and pushing limits. That mindset carried him into the U.S. Army, where he served as a Black Hawk crew chief, flying into the fire on countless Medevac missions, earning an ARCOM with Valor, 3 Air Medals, and the Combat Action Badge. But the battlefield did not stop when the deployments ended. Dereck faced his toughest flight yet, transitioning out of the military and reclaiming his purpose. He turned his struggles into strength, stepping away from self-destruction and rebuilding his life through faith, discipline, and perseverance. Now, as a quality manager producing vital components for the U.S. military, he's proving that life after service is just the next battlefield to conquer. This is a story of resilience, redemption, and unbreakable will to keep moving forward. Dereck Bible, welcome to Heroes Have Wings.
Make me sound good. Good to see you, Jason. Good to be here.
It's good to see you, man. How's life been treating you?
It's been pretty good lately. Been pretty good. How about you?
Same here, man. No complaints. All right, Dereck, let's get right into it. Quick hits. You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. Coffee or energy drinks?
Coffee.
City life, country living?
Oh, country living for sure.
Summer heat, winter cold?
Summer heat.
Movies or books?
Movies.
Dog person, cat person?
Dogs for sure.
Beach vacation or mountain retreat?
Mountain retreat.
Wake up early, stay up late?
Wake up early. I don't stay up late anymore.
I do both. Action movies or comedies?
Comedies.
Road trip or camping?
Camping, but we do a little bit of both. We take our camper where we go, so.
Nice. Texting or calling?
Texting.
Perfect. Why do you prefer texting?
It's just easier just to send a quick message instead of get on the phone. And unless I'm talking to a friend I haven't spoke to in a while, texting is just easier.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes it's just to the point, get it out the way.
Yeah. Let's
get started. Tell me about where you grew up, how life was growing up where you're from, and let's go from there.
Okay. So I grew up in a small town in Texas called Eastland. It had about 3,500 people, really small. Growing up, I grew up in throughout the 90s and early 2000s, before cell phones and stuff were really, really big. So we were out riding our bikes around town to our friends' houses and all meeting up, and we were outside pretty much all day until it got dark. It was pretty good time.
So growing up, were your parents together?
Yeah, they were together.
They're still together now?
Yeah, they're still together now. Yep.
So what was your family dynamic like?
It was good. My parents, they always put me and my brother first. Made sure we had everything we needed. We weren't rich by no means. We weren't poor. But we were kind of middle class, and they always made sure we had what we needed and took care of us and kind of shielded us from the world. So my childhood, it felt like the best time of my life because of that. I experienced like all the everything that's going on outside. Like wars and all that stuff, and it was just what was going on at home. That's all I knew.
So I see you grew up in a town, 3,500 people. That correct?
Yeah, 3,500 people.
How was that growing up in a small town?
It was good. Everybody knew everybody. you could ride your bike across town, you're a little kid, and you're not worried that someone's going to kidnap you or something. It's just it was good. It was easy life, no hustle and bustle. It was just simple.
Now, the age difference between you and your brother.
Uh, we're about just shy of 2 years. He was a grade below me in school, so we were pretty close.
How do you think life would have been different for you if you didn't have a sibling?
It'd be a lot different, I'd be the center of attention at that point. I wouldn't be sharing anything because our brothers are so close in age. We were sharing things and this and that. So I think it's better, for my personal. Everybody has their own different dynamic, but it was good having a brother there. We always fought and butted heads as kids, but it was good though.
Yeah, I tell everybody, I can't even imagine my life without my brother. We're only 10 and a half months apart. So like you said, we had to share stuff. We fought a lot, but I think growing up with siblings teaches you that first part of real life, that life isn't always about you. You're going to have to share. You're going to have to learn how to get along with people and those type of things. What's your dynamic and your relationship with your brother right now?
It's really good. We get along really well. We live about 4 hours apart. He lives where we grew up. I live out in East Texas now. But we see each other pretty often. We talk on the phone. We're actually doing our vacation together this year, and so we're really close. We're closer now than we were when we were kids. And he's got a family of his own now, and he's got nephews, and I like to go see them and stuff. So it's really good now.
That's perfect. Where you guys going on vacation?
Utah, yeah, Zion National Park, yeah.
Now, the relationship with your parents, how is that right now?
It's good. They're still living where I grew up. I see them once in a while, mostly holidays, and a few times here and there throughout the year. We'll go visit them, or they'll come visit us. But yeah, it's pretty good.
Who are some of the most influential people in your life growing up in your small town?
So honestly, my mom and dad, they've, growing up, my dad was like Superman to me when I was a little kid. He was my hero, and my mom, both of them are hard workers, work full-time jobs, forever. My dad's a mechanic, he owns his own shop, and he'd work all day, come home, eat dinner, and sometimes he'd have to go right back out and go to work till midnight, just try to make ends meet and stuff. My mom, she'd work all day and come home and make sure we got dinner. She'd cook us dinner after working all day, and take care of us. So, yeah, it was my mom and dad for sure.
So your mom was that mom that took care of home, still worked, still was present, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she's go getter.
Yeah, she's one of them super moms, right?
Yeah, yep.
I hear a lot of people complain and say they can't do that now, but it's crazy how I look back in the 80s, well, when I was growing up, and watching all these women just make it happen, working 1 or 2 jobs, taking care of a family, still having a social life, being married. So it's good to see.
Yeah. I mean, back then I didn't really notice it that much, but now looking back, it's like, wow, she handled a lot. She took care of us. She worked all the time and made things happen.
That relationship, watching your mom and dad growing up, working hard, being together, loving each other, still together to this day. How did that help you become a man, and how did that help you in your marriage now?
Things weren't perfect, all the time. They had their things too, but they shielded us from those things mostly. But it just showed me, like, through everything, through thick and thin, you can love each other and stay together and have a good life like that. So it was good. It was good having that dynamic. I know some people don't have that, and it's not, it may work for other people differently, but for me, and having my family together really made me see what a family dynamic should be to me, and that's what I want to have with my family is, having my wife and future kids and staying close and together, so.
At what point did you realize you wanted to join the military?
After 9/11, it kind of was the first time it kind of popped in my head that I had thought about it. And I was like in middle school then, so it wasn't like a serious thought at that point, but that was the first time it actually popped in my head. And then in 2003, whenever the Iraq invasion was going on, you could see it on TV, on the news. So my dad he'd be watching the news all the time, and you could see the reporters over there and bombs in the background, things like that, And I was like, man, I really want to do something like that. And then I was kind of a punk in high school. Just didn't do my schoolwork. Almost ended up in my brother's grade. Almost failed, and kind of picked it back up towards the end of high school. But um, I wasn't really serious about it until I tried college a semester and realized that wasn't going to work out for me at that time. Till I got super serious about it. But I had family in the military. I had a couple uncles that were Vietnam vets and Army. My grandpa, he was a World War II vet in the Navy. When it was in Pearl Harbor. And so I've always had that kind of mindset of like, I respected the military, and it's always been kind of a thought since, like I said, middle school. But it got really serious after I tried college for a semester. I would say that.
Oh, you're a third generation military veteran?
Yes.
I want to backtrack for 1 second. You said your grandfather, World War II Navy vet, and he was at Pearl Harbor. Did he ever tell you any of those stories?
Honestly, I was pretty young when he passed away in the early 90s. So my dad's the youngest of 11 children, and so my grandpa was like in his 50s when he had my dad. So he was pretty up in age when I was a little kid, and so I only got to meet him. I only remember seeing him a few times, so it was never like those times where I could have a conversation with him. I was too young, so.
That's one of these reasons why I created Heroes Have Wings, man. Think about all those World War II veterans that had amazing stories and we never got to hear them.
That's right, man. They went through so much too, and they didn't have the support that we got now.
Correct. That generation, man. If we want to look at a tough generation, that was one right there, because these guys went through it. And I think, they got movies out there to capture some stories, but think about all the stories that we haven't heard, all the stories in the graveyard or at the bottom of the ocean, or, over in Europe, all those Americans that lost their lives, all those stories that we'll never hear. And it's pretty sad just thinking about it.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
How did your parents feel when you told them, hey, I want to join the military?
Well, so the first time that I went to recruit, I actually went to Air Force recruiter, and I didn't tell them. I just, it was in my head, I want to do it. And I knew they didn't really want me to do something like that, or I didn't really talk to them about it. So, that was my thought, they didn't really care for me to do something like that. So I just kind of went and talked to a recruiter. And then whenever I got a schedule to go see him, or to go to MEPS and stuff, I had to tell my mom, so she'd give me a ride to drop me off there. And she was like, what are you doing? And they weren't very happy at first. They weren't going to say, no, don't do that. But you could tell they were upset about the situation. Like, ask me, why would you want to do that? Kind of thing. Like, what was your thought process? Because to them, it was just a shock. They didn't know that I was interested in that. But
why the Air Force?
Well, I had two cousins. One of them at the time was still in the Air Force, and so like I said, my dad was a mechanic, and I always wanted to work on something. Like that was kind of the path I thought I was going to do too. And so I was like, man, the fighter jets, man, that'd be cool to work on fighter jets. So that was kind of my mindset. And like I said, I had a couple cousins in, they gave me some feedback on it. And so that was where I was going to take. But with that, I ended up going to MEPS in San Antonio, and got down there, went through the medical stuff. And for some reason, something kicked back on my medical. And so they said, hey, you can't swear in today. You'll have to go home, come back, and try it again, So I went back, and I was like, this was like December of 2007. I got back, and I kind of like, got me down about it. I was like, hey, you know what, whatever. So I ended up trying another semester of college, same thing, I had a choice to go to class or not, and I chose not to go to class. And then I was seeing Army commercials and stuff, and I had a buddy that I grew up with. He joined the Army, and he came back to do his little recruiting thing after basic training, and came and talked to me a little bit. And I was like, I'm going to look into that. So I ended up going to Army recruiter that next summer. I guess it was middle of June, 2008. And he was like, man, I had an okay ASVAB score. He was like, okay, you can have any of those, mechanic jobs you want. You can work on helicopters, Humvees, whatever you want to do. It's all available, So I was looking at the helicopters and looking at the Chinook and Apache and stuff. And I thought the Black Hawk one was cool. At this time, I didn't even know what crew chief was. I thought I was just going to work on helicopters. So I was like, I was just trying to pick which one I want to work on. And the Black Hawk seemed like the coolest because it was utility, had different mission sets and stuff, and I thought it looked cool. So I ended up doing that one and going to MEPS, and it all worked out. And I'm shipping out like 2 weeks later. It was quick.
So that medical issue you had with the Air Force, it wasn't an issue with the Army?
No, and I don't even think it was really an issue with Air Force. Something got messed up. I really don't know what happened there, but everything went through. So it's probably like a blessing in disguise. I wasn't meant to go to the Air Force. I was meant to go to the Army. So
correct. I think you made the right decision.
I think so too.
How'd your parents feel when you finally committed? You're about to leave. Were they supportive? Were they sad? Were they worried?
Well, so when I decided to go to the Army recruiter a few months later, they were all upset again, because I was like, they thought, okay, we dodged that bullet. He's not going. But once it kind of set in, they realized I was committed. I was going to do it. I mean, they were very supportive. My mom drove me down to the recruiting station, and she ended up watching me head out. The next day. They were supportive. They were sad to see me go, and they obviously worried about me, like any parents would. But they were very supportive of me at that point once they saw that I was committed to do it. So.
And you made this decision at the peak of combat, 2008, correct?
Yeah, 2008. Yep.
Yeah, 2008. I was in Afghanistan, hustling and bustling. So
yeah.
Being a parent now, just imagine, I could really relate how your parents felt. Son comes home. Hey, I'm gonna go join the Army. Wait a minute, the Army's in combat right now. What are you doing? So I could understand how your parents felt.
Yeah, and at the time, I didn't really think about it like that. I was like, I knew we were at war, and I was probably going to go at some point, but I didn't really think about it like that too much. I know for them, it was pretty painful to see their son go. I'm sure, but yeah, they were very supportive though. Once I went.
Where do you do basic at?
Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Relaxing Jackson, they call it.
You show up to Fort Jackson. Now, mind you, you're growing up in a town with 3,500 people. You show up to basic. Was there any culture shock there?
Oh, man. So I had never been anywhere. I went to Oklahoma once. That's the only time I've been outside of Texas, at all. I'd never been anywhere. I had no culture experience other than where I grew up. And that was my first plane ride to going out there. So we land out there and we get in the airport, and immediately we're around people I was around people with New York accents and, different cultures and accents. I was like, man, this is crazy. I was kind of excited at that point. And then we got on the bus to go on to Jackson. I see these big pine trees everywhere. And where I grew up, it's like no trees, close to West Texas, So it was like a shock to me. I was like, man, this is beautiful to me, all these big trees. And then we get on the base and go into reception and start seeing the drill sergeants and all that. And it was like, that's when it hit me. I was like, man, what did I do? What did I do? And then, and like I said, I'd never been anywhere. Everything's just brand new, never been away from home. So it was the biggest culture shock I ever experienced.
We all experience that when we get to reception for the first day. Like, what the hell did I just get myself into? How hard was basic for you?
Do it like everything we did in basic wasn't hard. I enjoyed the things we did. We got to do some cool stuff. The hardest part for me was being away from home. I got homesick. But as far as all, doing all the PT and doing all the tasks we had to do and all the getting smoked and all that fun stuff, I kind of enjoyed it. I made friends there, and it just being away from home, that was the toughest part for me.
How did you deal with that? Because I think that's one thing that we don't talk about a lot. We talk about, the physical part, the yelling part. How did you cope with being homesick? Because I know I dealt with homesick throughout my whole military career.
Yeah.
And basic was the first time I really encountered it. And I didn't think it was a real thing until I got away from home. And now I'm at basic with all these strangers, and, we're all going through our own issues. How did you deal with your homesickness?
Man, at first it was just really hard. I mean, I just, we were doing so much, and we were always, drill sergeants were always in our face, or we were doing a task or something. So it was kind of like doing stuff kind of kept me off my mindset kind of right. But at night, I was like, in my bunk, I was just, man, I want to be home, kind of thing. But just over time, I guess since the more I got connected with people there, uh, the better I felt, and hearing other people feeling the same way as me, it made it okay, and I got to where at a certain point I was just like, it felt normal.
Did you have any issues meeting people, building relationships?
No, not really. I actually made a lot of good friends, some of which I still talk to today, even in basic training. And a couple of the guys flew over with me from Dallas, and they ended up being in my platoon at basic, so that helped out a lot. We became pretty close.
So you wrap it up at basic. You get any accolades or awards while you're at basic?
No, I was just trying to stay in the middle, trying to stay out of the way.
What was your most memorable moment about basic?
Graduation. My family came out, and seeing them on Family Day and how proud of me they were, seeing me go from, how I was and then becoming a soldier, that was probably the best moment I had, was graduation, seeing my family and seeing how proud they were.
I think that's a very pivotal moment in every soldier's life. That's the first time you're a true soldier. You're very infantile at that time, but that's that first true acknowledgement you get from the world, your peers, the drill sergeants, your family, that you're not a civilian anymore. You're a soldier. Was your mom and dad very emotional?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think we all were. Yeah, actually, my mom, my dad, my brother, and my grandma all drove out. It was like a 2-day drive for them out, from Texas, and they drove out to see me. Yeah, it was emotional. It was good. It was nice to see how proud they were of me and see them after this, 9 weeks or 10 weeks of basic training, whatever it was.
That's pretty good. You guys shared that moment together. When you were done basic, where'd you go next for AIT?
Fort Eustis, Virginia. Yeah, we bust up there to learn how to work on Blackhawks.
So now you leave Texas, the only state you've pretty much lived in your whole life and been exposed to. Now you're in Virginia. How was that culture shock?
Another culture shock. It was like, it wasn't as bad as getting to Fort Jackson, but it was still like, I got there and it was another new place, never been. Didn't know anybody again because everybody was a basic, but they all went to different MOSs, different AITs and stuff. So yeah, at first it was another shock, and the weather was really good when we got there, because I got there like October, and Virginia, I was like, man, this could be pretty nice weather, but man, it gets cold there in the wintertime.
How long was the AIT for you?
It was about 4 months, I think. We graduated in February.
How was AIT? Was it hard?
The schooling was super easy. We didn't have drill sergeants anymore. I think that was like a year after they took off the hats. It was just platoon sergeants, like cadre. And they would smoke us and stuff and all that, but it wasn't as bad as basic. We were locked down. We get like a couple hours on the weekend to go out, whatever, but it wasn't bad at all. So I made some friends there and stuff, and it wasn't bad.
Did any friends from basic go to AIT with you?
No, I didn't have anybody there that was a tango.
You're the only tango at basic?
That was the only one that I knew of anyway.
I think that's pretty odd how we don't realize how small aviation is until we start venturing outside to the other parts of the Army, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't even think Army aviation was a thing until I was 5 years into the Army. I never heard about Army aviation. What is that? So it's crazy how, when we get to aviation, that's all we really focus on is what's going on in our world. But when we start dipping outside of aviation, we realize that there's this huge Army out there. Where was your first duty station?
Fort Campbell. But yeah, it wasn't supposed to be.
What was supposed to be your first duty station?
Crazy story in AIT. My class, we got our first orders. Me and 3 other guys, we had orders to Honduras. And I was excited, man. I was like, man, that's going to be a cool experience. And I can't remember if it was an admin or I don't know what he was at the time. I was pretty, green to everything, so I don't know. But this staff sergeant, he was not having it. He was like, man, straight IAT, you're not going to Hondo because they don't have a maintenance company. You go straight to flight, and you need some experience. So he made sure that all 4 of our orders got changed within like a week. So a couple of the guys got Hawaii, one got Germany, and I got South Korea. So I was like, I guess I'm going to South Korea. Not as cool, but I guess overseas, it'd be might be cool. Then I found out about 160th when I was there, and for some reason, I don't know how it came about, but like an old sergeant major from 160th, or he was in 160th, but he was sergeant major at Eustis now. He had this opportunity where if you had a good PT score and he thought you were fit, or made the cut to go to 160th, he would cut your orders right then to go to Green Platoon, it was called at the time. So I had a meeting with the sergeant major. He looked over my scores, asked me some questions and things. Next thing you know, like 2 days later, I have orders changed to go to 160th Green Platoon and at Fort Campbell. So get done with AIT and I get to Campbell, go through reception, and the 160th Green Platoon barracks are like right across the yard from reception. So I get over there and there was a class going at the time. So I was in the hold platoon. And they would just mess with you all day long. We were low crawling through mud pits and in our uniform and then go change, do it again. And then we'd be sitting in the classroom and we call them Sergeant Night Stalkers. They'd come in and just mess with us and we'd have to stand up, say this Night Stalker creed like 14 times a day, So I was in that process. I was excited. I was ready to do, I didn't really, I knew what 160th was. I knew it was special operations, aviation, but being as young as I was then, I didn't really understand it fully like I do now, what their mission set was. But anyway, I ended up starting my class. We're going through the whole initial process, doing all the stuff like physicals and evaluations and stuff to get going. And then we start class and we're doing log PT, doing whatever. And a couple of days later, they called me and I don't know, it was probably like 7 or 8 of us out. And they said, hey, we've got to send you back to whole platoon. You're not going to be able to be in 160th. And I was like confused because I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't think I did anything wrong. I was just doing everything I was supposed to do. I wasn't failing anything. I wasn't standing out in the wrong way. And it turns out the only thing I can think of is when we're doing the psych eval and the background check stuff for the clearance. When I was 18, back in my small hometown, me and my buddy decided to climb on the public library. We're climbing on buildings and stuff in town. And we got in trouble and got a criminal trespassing charge. And that's the only thing I can think of, maybe my background or something. But anyway, how it happened was I went back to whole platoon after a little bit, and they ended up sending me down the road to 101st.
Damn, I never even knew that about you.
Yeah, unfortunate, but I think everything kind of played out, how it was supposed to, so.
They never gave you a reason why they put you out?
They wouldn't ever tell you anything. It was just, so I don't know. Like I said, it wasn't anything physical or anything that I was doing wrong. I think it had to do with my psych or background. Something happened there.
How did that make you feel, them putting you out and now sending you down to the 101st? You're brand new to the Army. Probably this is the first bit of adversity you're probably facing. How'd that make you feel right out of the jump?
I was upset. Yeah, because I went through the whole platoon stuff, all the hazing and all the, smoke sessions and doing all that, and then starting the process. And we had a kind of a group at that point when we all knew each other and we were going through this together. And I was excited about it. I was committed. I was ready to go. I was ready to get everything done. And we did some, we're in whole platoon. We did some details on the compound. We got to talk to some guys and stuff. And I was just excited about it. So getting all of a sudden getting pushed out of it, I was like, man, this sucks.
How did your resilience help you deal with that moment?
Well, I was just, at that point, I was like, there's nothing I can do about it right this minute. So I'll just, 101st is a historic unit. So I was kind of like, I'm staying here at Campbell. Some guys had to go other places, that were scheduled to go to 2nd or 3rd Battalion. I was scheduled to go to 1st Battalion at Campbell. So they sent me to 101st. I was like, you know what? I'm still here. 101st is pretty prestigious unit. So let's just go. Did
you ever want to go back to the 160th, or was that just the door completely shut in your life and you're just moving forward from here on out?
So I definitely contemplated it several times. But once we got going on deployments and stuff in the 101st, and when I got around in the Medevac, I fell in love with the Medevac. So it was kind of like at that point, I wasn't going nowhere else.
What was your biggest takeaway from that experience?
Sometimes you can't control what's going on. You just got to roll with the punches and try to be resilient. Just take what you get and move on, drive on.
How do you think that got you ready for what you were about to experience?
It was my first taste of getting, I guess, rejected or getting something that I didn't plan or choose. So at that point, I knew, like, in the Army, that things change all the time. So you just got to roll with it. I think that kind of gave me that mindset of, you never know what's going to hit you, where you're going to go, what's going to happen. So just be ready for it.
Just to backtrack real quickly, did you have any key takeaways from AIT at all?
AIT, it got me the opportunity that I potentially would have been in 160th. And I thought that was pretty neat. So I guess that would be a takeaway is if you're doing the right thing, got a good PT score, not getting in trouble, opportunities like that can arise for you, even though it didn't work out, I had that opportunity in front of me.
So that's important. What you just said there, putting your best foot forward will always pay off in the future. So that's good that you had that mindset when you first started off. You show up to 101st. What happened next?
So I got to 101st, and initially I got to DECO, maintenance company. Got over there, and this was 2009, like middle of 2009. So I was in the hold and green platoon stuff for like 5 months, and then I went over. And so I went over there, and those guys all just came back 08, 09 deployment, I guess, 6 months earlier or whatever. And I went to DECO, and I thought I was just going to work on helicopters, At this point, I was like, I still didn't really grasp the crew stuff, I was just kind of new and young, and I was going to work on helicopters in Delta Company, So I was doing that for like, it was probably 2 or 3 months. And then they came and asked me, hey, you want to go to flight company? And it was a Medevac. They had a couple slots in the Medevac. It was me and Turner went together. It was us two. They asked us, and, rest history on that. We went over to the Med.
Did you even know that was a thing, or did you think you're gonna be stuck in Delta Company your entire military career?
At that point, I knew that crewing was a thing. I knew there was flight companies, but my thought on it was going to be years down the road before I would have the opportunity anyway. So I was going to be in maintenance for a long time. I think I'd have a lot of experience and this and that. Coming from AIT, where my orders got changed from Hondo because of it. I was like, my mindset was like, you got to have some experience to go there.
How did you feel when they came to you and said, hey, you want to go to a flight company?
I was excited. I was like, let's go.
No hesitation at all?
No, I was ready.
You show up to Medevac. What was that like?
It's different, because, when you're in Delta Company or a flight company outside of Medevac, it's all aviation. There's no medics. And how Medevac's ran, you got a, medical corps commander and all your platoon sergeants are medics and things. So it was different, but in a good way. I really liked it. I liked the way everything was going over there, and the mission. That's to that point where I was like, man, this mission is really, really special. But with that, I should go back in basic training. We're doing like the medical, we're doing IVs and stuff, the medical portion. I was like dreading doing the IVs and stuff. I was like, man, get this over with. I don't got to mess with it ever again. And then it turns out, here I am in the Med.
The Army will show you. They'll help you quick. It's crazy because I felt the same way about all the medical stuff, doing combat lifesaver course and all this other stuff and getting the IVs, the nasal pharyngeal things shoved in our nose. And I hated all that shit, man. And then I volunteered to go to the Medevac. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. So how long were you in Delta Company? 2 to 3 months, correct?
Yeah, probably 3 months tops. Yeah.
And this is what, the end of 2009?
Yeah, in 2009. And like I said, we're gearing up for, or I haven't said this, but we're gearing up for 2010 deployment coming up a few months later. So it was all kind of happening fast at that point.
Were you guys pretty busy for the lead up to the 2010 deployment?
Yeah, we were getting everything ready. And at that point, I wasn't on flights. I hadn't done any RL progression. I was just there kind of working on helicopters, helping whoever needed help out, because they've been doing this for a while, and they were all doing training, going out to JRC, whatever. And I just kind of showed up. So I didn't actually start RL progression until we got out there.
So you got out to Afghanistan?
Yeah, to Afghanistan.
Wow.
I was there late, and it was only a couple months before we went out. So we were prepping for deployment.
How overwhelmed did you feel?
At that time, I was kind of excited. I mean, as bad as that sounds, like I never been to deployment, so I didn't know all the stuff that went on, but I was excited just to do what I joined the Army to do. That was part. Everybody was fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan and doing their thing, and I was ready to be a part of it.
How'd your parents feel when you told them, "Hey, I'm going to combat"?
They weren't mad at or anything. They were supportive, but they were upset. They were worried about me.
It's different when, this is one reason why I'm happy I have you on the show today, because it's different when you got a guy like me that when I joined the military, there was nothing going on. And then 9/11 happened, right? And I continued to stay in. And like you said, 9/11, you were in middle school, right?
7th grade.
Real quickly, what was that day like for you, 7th grade?
So, I was whenever the towers were getting hit, I was actually in math class, and I remember that they brought in TVs, and we kind of saw as the second tower was getting hit, and everybody was kind of like shocked, Everybody, we were little kids, but it was just like, what's going on, It was shocking, and I obviously I didn't understand the extent of everything, like I do now, but it kind of shut down the school. I mean, we were watching the TV, watching the news.
I think it shut down the world at that moment.
Yeah.
You joined the Army knowing without a shadow of a doubt that you're going to be in Iraq or Afghanistan due to the nature of your MOS, because you're a 15 Tango. You didn't understand it at the time, but the likelihood of you becoming a crew chief on a Black Hawk and getting sent overseas was highly likely. So I only could imagine how your parents felt inside. I only could imagine it. How'd that conversation go?
They were obviously sad about it, but they were just making sure I was okay, and just being supportive. I mean, they were supportive. And my dad, he researches things a lot and stuff, so he knew about the 101st and he knew all the stuff. So I'm sure they expected it too, but you never want watch your kid go do something like that. So, but they were there. They were supportive.
How was your brother during this time, watching his big brother go to combat? And I know his world had to be messed up a little bit too.
At that time, he was in college doing his thing, and I didn't really talk to him much at that time. He came to visit me a couple times or once at Campbell before deployment and stuff, but we didn't speak much about it too much.
So you show up to Afghanistan. How old are you at this time?
21.
21.
Yeah.
That's crazy, because Jimmy and I were talking about that in his episode that's coming out today. We were talking about how young we were and how young, the soldiers are, and how young a lot of our patients were. I think a lot of people were very oblivious to that when we're talking about from a Medevac standpoint and the people that were helping some very young adults. 21, you show up to Afghanistan. How was that?
I was on the flight that was supposed to go ahead with some aircraft on a C-17, and the Air Force schedule or aircraft breaking down, whatever the case, we ended up leaving like a week after everybody. And so we flew out to Germany on the C-17 and then straight into Afghanistan from there. And like guys were already setting up at that point, it was like a week later. Landed in Kandahar, and it was like a shock, it was like it's all desert and mountains and stuff, wow, I didn't really know what to think at that time. I was kind of excited to just get going. I had some adrenaline, I guess. I was excited to get going at that point.
How long did it take to become RO1?
It seemed like it was pretty quick. So I didn't actually stay at Kandahar. As soon as we got there, after a couple of days, I got sent out to 5 Wolverine with 2nd Platoon. And then it seemed like right away I started progression. Maybe a couple months tops. It's pretty quick.
Were you doing any missions during your RO progression?
I don't think I did any missions during progression. I think it was after.
So how was that whole process, it being your first time?
Crazy. I mean, we were doing training flights outside the wire, just it was kind of shocking to me that we were just landing and doing pinnacle landings and stuff, just willy-nilly out there,
What was your first mission like?
It was a Moscow.
Welcome to the Medevac.
Being a new crew chief, I was with an experienced medic, which was Drew Harding. He was my platoon sergeant at the time. Really good dude. Funny. But we got that call, and I think it was a bus crash. It was like some locals. They got in a bus crash, and there's a bunch of them hurt and injured, whatever. But I just hear Moscow, and I'm freaking out. And we go out, and luckily it wasn't anything super crazy. Most of the people there was a lot of ambulatory, and it wasn't super lot going on in the back. But yeah, there was a lot of patients though. It was crazy.
You're just there. Hey, let me make sure this medic gets off the aircraft. Make sure he gets back on the aircraft. What was one of your most memorable moments in that deployment?
I would say there was a pretty bad mission that is what my most memorable moment is, unfortunately. But as far as the platoon, we had such a good platoon out there, so close. Commander was good, and then First Sergeant Thomas came out, and he ended up taking over as platoon sergeant towards the end of the deployment, and I really liked him a lot, and he ended up actually pinning me sergeant on my second deployment. But yeah, I think our platoon was really close, and that was my most memorable good memory.
Now that mission you touched lightly on, do you want to talk about that?
It was about 4:00 in the morning. We got a call. It was a fallen angel, and it was Alpha Company 6th Battalion, and they hit the side of the mountain, and we got called out there. We ended up sending first up and second up out. Got out there, and it was just. I don't want to get too much detail about it, but it was pretty chaotic, and there was a lot going on. A lot of KIA, and that was the one that Powell was on. But I remember we were on the aircraft. There was one ambulatory guy, and he was sitting in my crew seat, and Harding, he was working on some guys and doing his thing, like just getting after it. And I had this Navy SEAL. He was in my lap, had a tube down his throat, and just giving him some air. And he was out of it. His eyes were open. We made eye contact a couple of times, but he wasn't there. And I was just sitting in the cargo floor, my back to the cargo door. Just I was breathing so fast and my adrenaline was running that going off my breaths, it would have been way too fast. I was sitting there counting, squeezing this bag. And it felt like an eternity getting to the FST. And we didn't have enough litters. So this guy was literally on the floor in my lap. And he had some stuff going on. Like, it was pretty bad. So we got there and we were trying to slide these people off onto litters, these soldiers off onto litters. And it was just a lot. And Chalk 2, Sergeant Ray, he knew him and Powell were really good friends. They were close. They were in the Medevac together on a previous deployment, and he had to pick him up, and it was just anytime you have a fallen angel, and especially guys, it's really, it kind of tears you down a little bit, so that one was rough to me. And unfortunately that Navy SEAL, I found out who he was and things and about his life. And it kind of, that sticks with me, more than most of any other mission I've been on. I think about that sometimes, but that one was tough, and we had a couple on that deployment with Silk too. That was a TK crew did that one. But
being 21 years old and literally a year earlier than that, you're at home chilling, or maybe 18 months, but now you find yourself experiencing this. What was going on in your mind at that time?
I was just focused on what I was doing. It wasn't like I didn't really grasp the whole detail of what was going on. I was just doing my job at that point and doing whatever Sergeant Harding needed me to do, help him out. But once we got back and kind of settled down and the emotions got there, and then seeing guys that knew the crew, a lot closer than I did, seeing them break down, and it was pretty hard on everybody there for a little bit.
How did you deal with that at 21 years old?
At the time, it wasn't until way later on that it really affected me. At the time I just kept doing my missions, and I didn't really think about too much. I was trying not to think about that kind of stuff too much. I just wanted to be focused on what I was doing.
At any time, did you call your parents, talk to them, let them know you're okay? Because I could only imagine that their level of concern.
So I didn't really call them too much out there. I would Skype once in a while and just, touch base with them. Didn't really talk about much. Just let them know I'm okay, and how's everything going back home kind of thing.
What was your biggest takeaway from your first combat deployment?
There's really things going on over there, and people are getting hurt. People are doing good things. There's bad guys out there. I did learn that flight medics were my heroes on that deployment.
I think if you're aviation or a medevac, at some point in life, you realize like these human beings are they're real superheroes, man. It's crazy to even wrap your mind around it when you think about it.
For the whole scheme of it, though, it wasn't that bad of a deployment. We had some rough ones, but man, it wasn't too bad.
Like, Dereck, I want you to really think about this, what you just said, right? And I only say this because this is how we're wired as Army people. That was not too bad of a deployment. If we took a regular civilian and put him in that same situation, think about it. We're soldiers, and these are life-altering events that we're dealing with, right? Now, if you just take an average person, it could crush a lot of people.
You're around so many people that's been through a lot worse stuff, and you're constantly training to do this job, So it's kind of like, I guess it just becomes like a numb thing, You don't think of it the way maybe somebody else would, or you would later on when you're away from it.
I think we become very conditioned to it, which is a good thing. It may catch up later, but at the moment, it's a good thing that we're just conditioned to it. Let's stay focused, keep doing our job. You leave Afghanistan, you come back to Tennessee. Did you know immediately that you guys are going to redeploy again?
Yeah, before we even left, we knew we were on another rotation about a year later.
How'd that make you feel?
At that time, everything felt normal. It felt because, the way the 101st and 82nd, all those guys are, you're training, you're deploying, deployment. So that was all I knew. That's all I thought about. Like, okay, we're going back. We're just going to continue to go back and train and go back. So at that time, I was like, we're going back, we're going to train, and we're going to come back.
When you came home from that deployment, you noticed any changes about who you are, mental health, anything to that effect?
I didn't notice anything negative. It was actually positive. Like I felt more mature. I understood my job better. I was RO1 crew chief now. I did some missions, so I had some experience. And I just mentally, I felt like I was stronger at that point because I had some experience with everything and some time in the Army. I wasn't as new anymore. So
it's crazy how the Army will make you grow up really fast. Think about your counterparts, your peers back at home, or other, 21 years old. These guys are at college partying. You're in the middle of a combat zone, growing up. I mean, immediately fast. I think it's a good experience because we do grow up fast. It's crazy. There's that saying out there that says you want to become a man fast, join the military, a man or a woman. You will learn life very fast. What'd you do when you get home? What was the op tempo like? What were you doing to make sure you got some downtime, unwind?
Yeah, so we had block leave, and then right into it. We were transitioning from the Alpha Limas to the mics. So we had to do the mic course for maintenance, and obviously the pilots had to do their thing too. And then for the HH, we had to do another course for the HH because it's a different airframe. And then we had to go pick up helicopters in New Jersey. So I was doing trips out there, picking up new aircraft. Actually took one of the Alpha Limas out for a reset in Fort Lewis, Washington. Probably the coolest trip I ever did, stateside, because we had to fly all the way across country, and then train GRTC rotations, NTC, high altitude mountain training in Colorado. It was just go. And when we weren't going, we're out partying and drinking, and there was always something going on. There was no slowdown.
I think that pace is good it keeps the complacency down. And I think that's one thing I notice. When we're in the Army, our minds are so busy doing everything that we do that it doesn't give us that time for things to really set in and things start weighing us down because we're so damn busy. I remember showing up in 2011. I showed up and man, it was just balls to the wall busy. One thing after another. How was high altitude training for you?
I enjoyed it. I got hypoxia a couple of times, but it was good. I think I was out there with you.
Yeah.
But you know those masks and stuff they had back there. I was playing with those, but now I didn't really get super hypoxia, but I could feel it up there in the altitude. That was the first experience I had it with the mountains, you know. But it was fun. It was fun out there. We had a good time.
I remember when we used to do it. I used to, as the PC, I would always check on you guys, and you could tell. We were trained to tell for the signs. The lethargicness, people getting giddy. Because it's when you get hypoxic, it's very similar to being intoxicated drunk. I would always check on my guys. Plus, at certain altitudes, we just had that canister on. It would just spray us,
Yeah.
in the nose. You remember that? But I think Hass was some of the best training I ever had. It was a good time out there.
Yeah, it was. It was good. It was better than JRTC or NTC, I'll tell you that.
Definitely. Second deployment comes up. How are you feeling inside about going again?
It just all feels natural because that's just the way 101st rolls. You're just going. You're going. You're training. That's just the way it was. So I was ready to go. I knew I was going, and I knew before we even came back from the last one, so I was already mentally prepared for it.
Did you feel any certain way about last time you're in RC South, now you're going to be in RC East, a whole different flying up north than down south?
I knew the landscape was going to be different, and bigger mountains, different things, but that's about it. I was just anxious to get out there and see how everything was going to go, how it's going to look.
When you showed up to Afghanistan, what platoon were you part of?
So I was supposed to be a part of second platoon, but it got broken off. So I was first platoon out at Shank Gosney Warrior.
And during that time down in Shank, where were you mainly at? Or were you just on a constant rotation to the 3 locations?
First, I was at Shank for just a bit, and then I went out to Warrior, and then came back to Shank, and then I actually finished up at Bagram. But Warrior, I spent quite a bit of time at Warrior.
And how was that like?
Felt like you're in the middle of nowhere, away from everybody. It's a little bitty. There's no aviation assets out there except for just our 2 Medbirds, our first up and second up. Just all SF and grunts and stuff. So if we fly out on a mission, our chase bird, obviously we're chasing each other, but if we need guns, they're coming from somewhere else, but I enjoyed it out there. Actually, it was nice. It was quiet, away from the head shed, crazy start to the deployment. There's a lot going on at first.
What was going on?
So when we first got to Shank, we had just got there like a couple of days, and we were working with 82nd, doing mixed crews, trying to learn the area, and coming around, came in, hit the tent that some of the guys were staying in, and Patterson and a couple guys got TBIs from it, and one of the 82nd guys got killed from that. He was on the way home. He was about to go home, and that was like a shock, for everybody. And 82nd, they had a rough year anyway, and that was to end it like that was pretty devastating for those guys, and that's when I was like, this can be real. And Shank, man, the IDF, obviously we got it on my first deployment, but it was a lot more accurate at Shank than it was on my previous. They were actually making some rounds hit close to people and hitting people. So that was a shock, and then I got out to Warrior, and the day I got out there, it was me, Sergeant Crawford, and 82nd crew chief sitting there by our tent, and an IDF round came over, and the alarms didn't go off for whatever reason. I know there was a way, some kind of round they could avoid that somehow. I don't know. I can't remember, but it hit. There was like this dirt mound kind of out. I don't know. It wasn't too far from us. If this thing would have blew up, it would have probably got us, but it was a dud. It just hit this dirt mound, is stuck, and I was kind of just shocked. If that thing would have blew up, it would have probably got us.
With those 2 incidences happening, did you realize at any moment, like, man, life is real precious. At a moment's notice, it all could be gone.
Yeah, and at that time, I was like, this one's going to be real. Obviously the last one was too, but it's starting off on a bad foot, so I gotta pay attention to what's going on around me.
From busyness, kinetic activity, what was the difference between 10 and 12, 13?
The area that, Shank Gosney Warrior out there, compared to my first deployment, there was a lot more going on. There was a lot more POIs where you're under fire. And like I said, the IDF was accurate coming in. So it was it was a lot more going on as far as that goes.
What was your most memorable moment for that deployment?
As far as good moments, I'll say when I made sergeant, got promoted to sergeant, and I actually re-enlisted out there too on that one. So, man, those are the positives to take away from it.
Yeah, this man re-enlisted in the combat zone. That says a lot about who he is.
Yeah, I was like, I'm going to re-enlist anyway. I get a bonus for being out here tax-free, so let's do it.
What was your most memorable mission out there?
So there's one time I was at Warrior. Danny was my crew chief out there. And we got a call, and I think it was the 173rd and 82nd, they were doing like a changeover. So there was like a commander or first sergeant out there with him, and they were doing a mission together, you know. And they were low on ammo. They got pinned into this, what they call them, like collade or waddy, whatever, inside of a building, like inside walls. So they were in there low on ammo, surrounded. I guess this was an area that hadn't really been touched on, so it was like infested with Taliban at that point. And there were Apaches shooting down at people. Like when we flew in, I could see Apaches shooting down at guys shooting up at them. And they were shooting artillery from the nearest fob into it. And we come in and we're trying to land the first time. And there was like 4 patients. I think one was a gunshot to the head, one to the chest. It was pretty rough deal. And we tried to come in to land, and we started taking fire. So we do a go around. And I don't know if we tried it twice or just once. And then we got told, hey, hover outside the area just a second. A fast mover is going to drop a bomb. A jet's going to come in and drop a bomb. So we're kind of hovering out, and this jet flies by. And a couple seconds later, you just see this big explosion, you know, this bomb hit. And I was like, all right, we're good. They just leveled them out, you know. So we decided, all right, it's time to go. We got to get these guys out. We come in to land, and I don't know, we're probably like 50 feet off the deck at this point. And I looked over on my side, and there was these 2 guys standing on top of a little mud hut. And they were just like looking at us going, you know, like waving us back, like, go. No, you don't want to go in there, you know, kind of thing. But at this point, we're committed, you know, we're going in this time.
When you say 2 guys, was it 2 soldiers?
No, it was like 2 civilian, Afghan. Yeah. They didn't have guns now. They were just like, you know, no kind of thing. And we land. So I was second up at the time, and we land, or chase. And we land. So the first up aircraft lands kind of like right by the wall where the patients are inside there. And we land like an L right behind their tail. And as soon as we land, you know, there's dust and stuff out there when you're landing a lot of times. And as soon as we land, I throw the cargo door open, hop out to pull security, and Danny hops out the other side to go around to try to help get the patients loaded up and see if they needed to load any on ours or whatever we need to do. And as soon as I open the door and pop out, there's a tree line probably about, I don't know, 100 yards from us, and there's dudes at the tree line shooting at us. And so I immediately start popping rounds back at them, and I see dirt like hitting up around me. So at this point, Danny, this is what he told me. I didn't see him behind me, obviously, but he said he hopped out and went to run around to the other helicopter. And when he got between, he looked out and he saw the guy shooting. So he turned around and came back by the cargo, you know, door on his side and saw me shooting. He was kind of like, so he was standing there like, I don't know what to do. So I was firing back at these guys, and then I ended up, because the rounds were shooting, they were coming, like I seen the dirt hit up, you know. So I hop in the helicopter. I get behind kind of the wall by the cargo opening, and I'm popping rounds from inside the helicopter at this point. And then all of a sudden, it all happens pretty fast, and pilots tell us, hey, we're taking off. So my ICS cord was kind of hanging out on the ground because I was out on the ground first. So I'm pulling it up, trying to close the door, and they're taking off, and Danny's hanging on to me so I can get in. And all the patients actually got on other aircraft. And then we land to drop them off. And like I said, these guys on the ground, there was none of them were out pulling security. They had no ammo. They were just hiding in this, you know, they had some critical wounded guys, and they're just hiding in there, waiting to see if someone come get them or whatever they need to do. So I'm the only one returning fire right here. And other than these Apaches and stuff, they're out in the area, you know. And at some point, I guess they stopped firing at us, so I don't know what, there's no proof of anything, but they didn't, the fire, it stopped. Anyway, we got back, we were sitting there waiting, and we're trying to take ammo back out to them because they're just stuck.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you what happened with those guys out there that were just stuck.
Yeah, so our pilots make call, trying to get approval for us to take some ammo to them because we're the closest aviation asset to them at that time, and so we're trying to get approval to just haul out some ammo to them real quick. Obviously, it would suck to go right back in there, but those guys are stuck. So we're waiting on that, and we get denied. They said, no, you can't go. We don't have any guns, on the side. All we have is our M4s and M9. So they said, no, we're not. We're going to send somebody else, but it's going to take them longer, So we were already up running. We could just fly right back out there. Anyway, somebody else ended up helping them out. I don't know what actually ended up happening with that deal, but we get refueled, landed, pulling stuff out of the aircraft, trying to prep for the next mission we get. And we're doing a battle damage assessment. Somehow our aircraft did not get touched. No, I didn't find a single bullet.
Damn.
And anywhere. Chalk 1, they had one through the APU and one through the fuel cell. And they refueled and everything, with the round and fuel cell. But someone has a picture of it, but you can look down the fuel cell, and there was a 7.62 round sitting in the bottom of the fuel cell, and it wasn't mushroom or anything. We're just sitting in there. And the fuel cell did its job. It sealed up, but it wasn't leaking. And they had to actually come get the aircraft the next day and buddy start it and trade us out and all that. But yeah, that was probably the craziest one I went on.
Damn. How did that mission bring you and Danny close?
Man, after that, we were brothers, and in his eyes, I saved his life. And then, I was doing my job, and I felt safe with him there too. And I knew if we were going to take on patients, I knew he knew what he was doing. I was going to help any way I could. I knew we and our pilots, the whole crew. I knew everyone on that crew knew what they were doing, and we weren't going in there, unprepared. So, but yeah, after that mission, me and Danny we were close till the end, till he passed away.
Yeah, it's crazy how times like that will build bonds between people that are unbreakable. It's all you got at that moment, right? And you'll never forget that, because you're really testing people's true character. Like, what are you really going to do? Because you know how people like to talk a lot of shit. I'll do this, I'll do that. And then when something happens, they run off, and you get to really see what people are made of in combat. I think that's what really builds some tight relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. And, like I said, we train so much to do, we train like we fight. So when you get in those situations, most of us, when something happens, it's just automatic. You're not even thinking. It just clicks. You do what you're trained to do. And I think that's what was good about, sometimes it sucked going JRTC, NTC, doing these things, and we felt like it was repetitive and whatever, but it was important. It was important to the mission, and it showed in a lot of ways for a lot of people on that deployment,
I think you hit the nail on the head with that. Training is so important, man. I actually enjoyed going to HATS. Me as an aviator, I enjoyed flying. Anytime I was in a cockpit flying, especially doing the hard stuff, I'd rather do the hard stuff here in the States, because when we get to Afghanistan, Iraq, those places, I want to make sure I was prepared for what would come and make sure the crew is always ready. How long were you in Afghanistan at second rotation?
I think we were there 9 months. Yeah, 9 months.
What was your biggest takeaway from that deployment?
Towards the end of that one is when I really started to feel something change. So I need to go somewhere else, like get out of Campbell, not necessarily stop deploying and stuff, but I was like, man, I need a change of scenery. And a lot of guys were already scheduled to leave. Like, it was starting, the unit was starting to break up, So I was like, at that point, I was like, this is my time at Campbell. It's time to go somewhere else.
How did that whole process work for you? Did you get a hold of branch yourself, or did you talk to your chain of command?
I was up for re-enlistment, and when you re-enlist, you can try to get whatever you want, airborne school or a duty station, whatever. So that was kind of my selling point on on reenlisting. Well, I knew I wanted to stay 20 at that point, but I wanted to reenlist to go somewhere that I wanted to go for a while. And thinking back, my family, they always worried about me and stuff, and I went home for those first 4 years or whatever, pretty much. And I was like, as crazy as it sounds, I was like, I'm gonna reenlist for Fort Hood, go to first cav. And I was like, man, you're stupid. Don't do that. No, but so I reenlisted for Fort Hood.
You were E5 at this time, right?
Yeah, I was E5. So I went to the promotion board and at Bagram. I got promoted a few months later, and actually, Frank, he's the one that prepped me for the board. And that dude's solid. He's a hell of a dude. And he prepped me for the board, took me to the board, got my P status, and then a few months later, got picked up. And I had at the time I think it was Master Art Thomas, maybe the first sergeant at the time. I asked him to pin me. He pinned me there at Bagram in the hangar.
How long were you at Campbell total time?
Let's see, I got there in February 2009, and I left September 2013.
So you're looking at 4 years. 2 of those years, you were pretty much deployed.
Yep.
And the other 2 years, you were just go, go, go.
Go, training or out partying, acting stupid.
What did you learn the most at Fort Campbell as a new soldier, this being your first duty station? What did you learn the most now that you're an NCO and you moving forward in your Army career? What did you learn and take away from your whole time at Fort Campbell?
Well, I mean, I learned what the Army actually was, outside of TRADOC. I learned what a unit like the 101st does, like what the mission set is, how much training, you're doing. Obviously, we're not going out in the field 40 days a month like the infantry guys or whatever, but we're going on these rotations, flying, training flights, and just learning the job, like that's where I grew up, was Fort Campbell. That's where I learned how to be a man, pretty much, I guess you could say. That's when I grew up.
That's a pretty high standard to set for yourself right at the gate, jumping right into 101st, brand new crew chief, deployment within the first few months. You're pretty much fast tracking, man, on your career right there for experience wise. You show up to Fort Hood. What was that like?
Completely different, man. So first cav, air cav, I hate to say it, but the 101st is just top tier compared. It just felt like they didn't care about the aviation stuff at Hood as much. They were still in Alpha Limas, and the hangars weren't as good, the airfield weren't as good. It's just like it seems like they were just kind of left out there in no man's land, and they cared about tanks and stuff more. Which whatever, it is what it is. That's a armored cav or whatever, but it just was different. And at that time, stuff was kind of slowing down, and on deployments, rotations, and less people were going when they were deploying. And I was starting to see a lot of slick sleeves, which, whatever, is people's paths or whatever. They haven't went or haven't gone yet, whatever. But at Campbell, if you unless you had just got to Campbell, you have a combat patch, And so I was starting to see NCOs and stuff, no combat patch, and there was no deployment on the horizon. It was just all training. It was like everything was just slowing down fast. And which ended up being a bad thing for me.
That's something John Thomas and I talked about in his episode, how if you showed up to Fort Campbell without a combat patch, your ass is like a unicorn or something. We all look at you like, where the hell this guy been, right?
Yeah. At that time, that was just the way it was. If you're in the Army between that whatever time frame, you're deploying. I mean, you're going to go. Everybody's going.
What do you said it was a big difference. Do you think it was good as a young crew chief to go straight to 101st?
Yeah. I mean, I think so. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It's just kind of the way that the timeline worked out for me, and being used to the fast pace and knowing you're going on deployment after deployment, straight to stuff kind of slowing down over there and turning into garrison army. It's just, it was just a shock for me. But I mean, I think, yeah, 101st, 82nd, 10th Mountain, all them guys, I think that's a great place to go for anybody, straight out or not.
You think once you leave a place like 101st, 82nd, 10th Mountain Division, you leave these high op tempo force comm places, do you think that's something that we as soldiers, once we leave, we'll always be wanting to chase that feeling and adrenaline again?
Speaking for myself, I do think so, because I did, and I still sometimes do that, you know. You get so, that becomes your life, you know, that your brain gets wired to that. And when you take that away, and it seemed like it was just kind of ripped from me at that point. And it was my choice. I chose to go to Fort Hood about it. I honestly thought that the first Cav was just going and going and going too. That's what I always heard. But obviously with things slowing down, they weren't the first in line to go anywhere at that point. And so yeah, I really do think your brain gets kind of wired to that kind of mindset.
Yeah, it's crazy because I had one of my first job when I retired. I had a civilian guy, you know, he looked at me after him being around me for a few months. He goes, "Jason, I could tell you're an adrenaline junkie." I'm like, well, how is that? He's just, I hear your stories and I hear the way you carry yourself. I could just tell. And I was like, well, when he lived the life I lived, I mean, flying 10 feet off of trees and doing some crazy shit sometimes, you get used to that. But it's what we just said. It's something you can't replicate no matter how much you try to replicate it. You just can't replicate it. It's something that you only can experience in combat, man.
Yep. Yeah, that's true.
Not from a sick way. I'm glad we got to experience it, but I'm glad it's not everyday life as well, because hell, that'll burn you out like you're burning a candle at two ends, right?
And I watched it happen to a lot of guys, you know, they just got burned out. But yeah, I'm glad. I'm definitely glad I went through the experiences I did. I think it made me who I am today, you know, good and bad. But yeah, I definitely don't regret it at all.
When you got to Fort Hood, what were you doing there?
So I went to, I went in the GSAB, so I went to 3rd Battalion, the Salt Company over there. But like I said, at this time, so this is when I really started feeling the effects of the deployments. And I think part of that was because we were moving so fast at Campbell. And like I said, with all guys, I was out drinking. And when we were in free time, I never sat down and just stopped. It was just go, go, go. And I always knew that we were going to deployment. So when I got to Hood, there was nothing. And I was kind of like, when I first got there, Alpha Company was actually going to Afghanistan for a few months. They were attaching to some other unit. Like, they were the only company out of the whole brigade, I think, that went. And they were leaving like maybe a couple weeks after I got to the unit. And I was like, can I go with them? I asked my first, I was like, can I go with them? He was like, obviously not, you know, they're going and you haven't even been back for a few months, you know? But this slowing down, like so immediate, and being somewhere that I didn't know anybody really, it really got me in my head. I was starting to think about all the stuff, and it was starting to catch up to me. And honestly, Mac, do you know Monavon, Adam Monavon?
Yeah, I know Adam.
So Adam and Mac, man, those are some good dudes. They helped me a lot. So Mac knew a lot of what was going on kind of before I got to Hood, because I talked to him some, and he was going through some stuff too. And then when I got to Hood, I didn't have nobody, you know, that I knew. I was kind of there, and everything was kind of all at once, slowed down, and I got in my head, and I decided I need to go to the aid station or something and talk to somebody, maybe get on some kind of antidepressants or something, just try to figure something out, you know? So I talked to my platoon sergeant and went and did that. And I was just thinking, you know, I'm going to go to the aid station. I'm going to just try to do this. You know, I never wanted to before, never even thought about it really. So I did that, and one thing led to another, and I ended up doing some counseling and seeing a psychologist and stuff for a while, and trying different medications and stuff, trying to feel better. But I was having a hard time, honestly.
when you're going through this, did you ever feel like shameful or guilty or question why are you feeling like this? Anything like that?
All the above. All the above. I didn't want to feel that way. It sucked. I was like, man, what's going on? Like, why am I letting this stuff get to me like this? Why am I feeling this way? You know, so many guys, I've seen so many guys do more deployments than me, do this and that. And how come I can't man up? You know, that's the way I was seeing it to myself. But also at the same time, at this point, I was finally to the point where I actually went and saw somebody, you know, but I was still feeling that type of way where, man, like what's going on? You know, why me? Why am I feeling like this? But it sucked because I couldn't control it, you know, and I had a lot of anger. But I started seeing a psychologist and a counselor and stuff on Hood, doing appointments and stuff. And at some point it kind of just, they said, hey, we think we want to med board you if you're okay with that. Cause I wasn't getting nowhere. I kept going back, and I kept, you know, complaining to him and trying different medication. I was like, this ain't working, you know, and it's making me feel like some of those antidepressants and stuff are making me feel worse. And I know some people it works for, you know, no, you know, whatever, but it just wasn't working for me at that time. And I was like, you know what? Okay. Because they said, we can reclass you into a different job in the Army, needs of the Army. So, you know, whatever, or we can med board you. And I was like, man, if I want to stay in the Army, I don't want to do anything else other than what I'm doing. And needs of the Army, I could go do something that I would hate life, you know, I wouldn't want to do it. So I was like, if that's my only option, you know, send me through the med board. Let's do that.
Were you getting supported through your chain of command?
Yeah. So yeah, my chain of command was supportive. Yeah. My first sergeant, my commander were good at that time. And they were at that point, when I got to that point, they were just like, hey, you got appointment, go do what you need to do. Just let us know if you need anything. And they touch base with me pretty regular. At that point I was pretty much at appointments every week, you know. And then when I started the med board process, you know, I couldn't fly or do anything in the unit. So there was this deal on for NCOs, if it was available, you know, you kind of drive around in a cart around some communities on post and give tickets out for people not cutting their grass, kind of thing. So I got sent over there with a couple other NCOs that were retiring or getting out. And I would just go out and make my rounds every day, pass out tickets or warnings. Everybody in the community hated me. And then I'd do my appointments, and that was my day to day at that point. I was just doing my med board. You know, I'd go over to the VA clinic in Temple, see my PAB, all that, and that was just my day to day at that point.
Did you have a support system around you at this time?
You know, I probably could have, but I kept everything so locked inside. I didn't talk to anybody really at that point. Even like Mac and Adam at that point, while I was still in and going through that, I kind of just shut everybody off. And even my mom and dad, they didn't really know the extent of what was going on. Like I shut everybody off, and then I was close to home. So on the weekends, I'd go see some friends I grew up with and just party. That's all I would do. I would do my appointments, go try to drown it out, drinking and partying at the bar. And I just kept everything in. Nobody knew anything really.
Why do you think you did that?
I think it's a mix of things. I think it's, I didn't want to feel weak, make someone think I was weak. And I didn't want to put what's going on with me on somebody else. That was the way I was feeling. And I was I was afraid to talk about it, you know, other than with the doctors and whatever.
Looking back at it, knowing what you know now, do you think the people you kept out of your life and not telling, do you think they really want to be involved and want to be there for you?
Absolutely. I don't think there'd be a second thought. I think anybody in my close, you know, group, I think anybody I reached out to, they would have been all on board, all there for me, help me out every way they could. And that actually came too, you know, later on that actually happened. So, but yeah, there was no doubt about that. I don't think in my mind either. It was just internal with me not wanting to open up.
I think that's one of the most dangerous parts of dealing with your mental health is you get this ideal in your head that no one wants to help you. But then you're not even realizing that you're not communicating to the world that you need help either, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I didn't want to feel like a burden to somebody. You know, like my mindset was like, I'm going to be a burden to somebody else. They don't want to hear my story. They don't want to hear what's wrong with me. That was my mindset with it, and it was wrong.
Yeah, very wrong. I'm here to tell you and every other soldier out there, I'd rather you guys be a burden to me than you guys not be here and me going to your funeral. Okay, like
Yeah,
I think that's one of the biggest thing veterans like you and I need to do. We need to make sure we tell these veterans like, hey, listen, please be a burden.
absolutely.
Because the alternative is not the solution. Right. So I think that's one of the biggest things. Like, please be a burden. When I see you guys calling me, Corey, all you guys, I don't care what I'm doing. I'm answering the phone. And I tell people, like, hey, I got to answer this because I never want it to be the last time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There's nothing weak about reaching out and getting help, talking to somebody, talking to one of us. There's nothing we can. It's courageous. I mean, your mental health is so important.
If you saw a young soldier today, or even an older soldier, because what I've been realizing now, talking to people, doing my research, working on myself, a lot of guys that say nothing is wrong later on when they become older, you know, they hit their 60s, 70s, all this stuff starts to jump on them big time, and they even have a hard time dealing with it. If you saw one of these guys, what advice would you give them?
Don't wait. Reach out to somebody, get help. Don't try to handle things on your own. You know, and like I was saying, it's not weakness. You know, it's strength. So you can't battle it all on your own. You can't just bottle it up, and it's gonna come to head at some point. So yeah, just reach out to somebody, whether it be a friend, a relative, a doctor, whatever. Somebody just pick up the phone.
I agree with you 100%. And I'm proud of you for, you know, acknowledging that you had something wrong and you started to work on it. So my hats off to you, man. And just make sure every day you keep working on yourself. All right.
Absolutely.
So you go through the MEB process. How long did that take you?
Let's see. I think from start to finish, maybe 5-6 months. It was pretty fast.
Damn.
Yeah, they were quick. When I started getting an MAB, it was like every day I was doing appointments and stuff, and they'd send up the stuff to VA, and it was all like, it seemed like it was just quick at that point.
So at this time, were you getting ready to make that transition from being in the Army to being a civilian? And how old are you at this time?
So at this time, 25 going on 26, and I could say I was preparing myself because I was like, you know, I'm gonna get called to use my GI Bill, but mentally I was not preparing myself. I was still just going out on the weekends, partying, trying to just block out everything else, and just so yes and no. I wasn't really as prepared as I should have been.
How detrimental do you think the vices that you were using in your life was keeping you from getting better and moving forward?
Yeah, it had everything to do with it. I mean, it might drown out something for a little while, but it was not fixing any issues. It was only just pushing them out, and making. And in that time, it was just getting worse and worse and worse, pushing them out. You know, so it was the worst thing I could have done. Yeah, relying on something that's not a permanent fix or something that you can maintain for a long time that's healthy for you is never going to work out in your favor.
Mm-hmm. Hell, I had to learn that the hard way myself, man. It's a tough pill to swallow, right?
And it got worse when I got out too.
What happened when you did get out?
So when I got out, like I said, I was going to use a GI Bill. I got out in November 2014. I was going to start my first semester at a community college in Fort Worth, January. And I got out. As soon as I got out, I got an apartment, and I didn't have a job at that point. I was out. I would just, every chance I got, I was going out to bars. I was partying, getting drunk. And then 3:00 in the morning, I call Adam. He's got to work a few hours later. And I'm just like, you know, hyped up and like in a good mood talking to him. And then all of a sudden, by the end of the conversation, I've been bawling my eyes out and crying, you know, just not well. And that went on for a long time. And, Adam could tell you, but yeah, I called him a lot, especially in the middle of the night, drunk. And he just sat there and listened. He would, it doesn't matter if he worked an hour later and he hadn't slept. He would stay on the phone until he went to work, But yeah, that's what I was doing. I would just drink and partying, trying not to think about anything else. And like I said, I didn't have a job or nothing, so I didn't have nothing to occupy my mind, nothing going forward. I was waiting on school to start.
What happened, and what was the moment when you realized, shit, I got to do something because this right here is not working for me?
Unfortunately, it took longer than I should have. So I got out. This was early 2015 at this point. Late 2016, through this whole time, I was still just 100%, just going at it, not just pushing everything else aside. I was doing college at this time, so I was doing classes and stuff, and I was passing. Like, I got my associates, my bachelor's and stuff, but I was only going to school, just living off GI Bill and all that at this time, and so all my free time was just at the bar. But October 2016, I got in a bar incident and got in a fight and ended up with an assault charge. And that's what my rock bottom, that's when I was like, something's got to change, because I had so much anger. So any little thing set me off, anything. So I was always living with this anger, and like just little things throughout the whole time. I would just start yelling, get mad, pulling pictures off the wall, breaking them. I would just had so much anger built up from all this because I wasn't doing anything about what was going on with me.
Yeah.
And, then I hit rock bottom, and, it woke me up, and went through that, and it got deferred and stuff. So it didn't ruin my life or nothing, misdemeanor deal. But, it at that point, I was like, I knew something has got to seriously change with me. I was, throughout that time, I was burning bridges. I was just mad all the time. I was yelling at people.
What did you do to change?
So after that point, I started not going out stuff, and just that event that happened, it changed my mindset. Like, it made me actually think. It made me slow down and think, man, what am I like? I'm not only hurting myself at this point, I'm affecting other people around me. And what's going to happen? And I hate to say it, but throughout these times, there was times where man, I don't even want to be here no more. Like, I'd be angry, I'd be sad, I'd be mad. That was I never had a happy moment. It was just always one of those other emotions. But after that happened, I was it made me think man, I'm affecting everybody around me, not just myself now. And so I just try to put more focus in school. I stopped drinking for a while, which was good. That helped out some. And I started calling Adam again, not at 3:00 in the morning, and talking to Mac, because a lot of these guys going through the same stuff. They went through a lot too.
Hell, I was going through the same thing, same time frame.
Yeah, a bunch of us. And so I just started reaching out to those guys, and talking and hearing their stories, and hearing how they cope and how they got better and how they were doing things, and started feeding off that and trying to put my focus in finishing school and trying to be better. Like I said, I stopped drinking for a while, and I finished my associate's degree and moved on to another town for my bachelor's university, and got into drinking and stuff there again.
What do you think caused that relapse?
I didn't just fully embrace myself and get help. Like, I didn't go to AA or go back and see a counselor or a psychologist or anything. I didn't do that. I was I had such a bad taste in my mouth at Hood going through MEB, and I initially went to get help at the aid station. I wasn't trying to get out of the Army. And then all of a sudden, fast forward, nothing's working for me. And in my eyes, I was these counselors, these psychologists they can't do nothing for me. They don't understand. You know, that was kind of my mentality at that point. Like, they didn't do nothing for me. What are they going to do now? So I was only relying on just talking to, them, and I didn't fully embrace what was going on and tried to make something happen. But I was in a better state of mind. My anger wasn't as bad at that time. I wasn't out ruining somebody else's life at that time, just my own. But yeah, and I think a lot of it too is I didn't have, like, I was in school, but I didn't have a job or nothing at that point. I have nothing keeping me occupied, not a schedule really, other than a class schedule. I didn't have a schedule, things going on. And it wasn't until I graduated college that I think I really started to work on me.
When you graduated from college, what did you do next?
I graduated from college and I actually did as industrial technology engineering kind of degree. So I was trying to do that, doing like AutoCAD or something. But I was anxious because I wanted to work. I hadn't worked in the past 4 years. I want to get a job. I want to go to work. And I went back to my hometown. There was this company, family friend ran it, and they X-ray welds, pipeline, like oil field stuff. So I ended up getting in touch with him, and he's like, "Yeah, man, come on. We'll do your background check. It's a federal background check. You're dealing with like a source and these cameras and stuff that use, and they're pretty serious." But so we did a background check, and it turns out, so I know I kind of went ahead earlier, but do a background check, and he calls me the next day. He says, "Hey, man, you know if you have a warrant for your arrest?" I was like, "What?" And this was September 2018, and that bar incident happened in October 2016. The warrant didn't actually go out until like November 2017, and I didn't know about it. I thought it just like nothing happened with it. It was like whatever, like a bar incident, and that was it. And then I was like, no, I didn't know that. And I was like, well, obviously I was freaking out. I was like, I got to take care of this. Can I still have the job if I handle this? He's like, yeah, do what you need to do, handle it, and then come talk to him when you got on bail or whatever. So I go to my dad. I'm freaking out, and he's like, calm down. We called a bondsman in the county it was in. He's like, all right, we'll walk you up there, check you in, leave, and you'll be good to your court date, whatever, and get you a lawyer. And we had a family friend that's a lawyer, so I used him, but for counseling and advice and stuff. But so yeah, that happened, and then that was another wake up call because it'd been a couple years, and all of a sudden, like, oh wow, I have a warrant for my arrest. I'm going to jail. That's what I was thinking. I was like, this is, I'm about to pay for all this. All this, letting all this build up and my anger and all that. Take care of that, and he hires me. I mean, he gives me a chance. He's like, yeah. Sent me to the radiation safety course in Houston. And I started working, and it was good because I was traveling for work. So we, oil field, a lot of us in West Texas. So I'd be out there on per diem, living in a camper, just like going out there. And I was doing something. I had a schedule. I was working. I felt like I had a purpose. I was enjoying it. I was making good money, and it was keeping my mind in a better place at this point. And then all that while trying to handle that situation, and it finally did. I cleared that up, and I was working in West Texas, like I said, and then I went on vacation with my family to Smoky Mountains in Tennessee. I love Smoky Mountains, by the way. But went out there, came back to work, and instead of sending me back out to West Texas, they decided to send me to East Texas because they got a new job out there. So I was out here working and doing my thing, and I really, at that point, work was taking up all my time. My focus wasn't on, it kind of calmed me down. Like, I didn't have the anger anymore really as much. Like, I would still think about stuff, and I would still get depressed and anxious and all those things, but it was way less than it was before. Like, I was tenfold better than I was, just a couple years prior. Working out here, we'd go to this little Mexican restaurant in town and sit up at the bar and eat pretty much like 2 or 3 times a week. And the bartender up there, I thought she was cute. I was like, man, she's cute. So I started trying to talk to her and this and that. And one of the guys I was working with had been out here longer than me. He knew she was. and invited her out to the campers. We hung out and stuff, and one thing led to another, and we got together. And it's Sarah, my wife now.
Look at that. You're a true testament of once you hit rock bottom, the only place to go from there is up. And we got to start working and being very intentional on the things we do. When you met your wife, did you tell her about everything that was going on, or were you just like, yeah, she'll find out as we move along?
Not right away. It was just getting to know each other. You know, it wasn't like I didn't tell her any, like she knew I was in the Army, this and that, but she didn't know really what I did or what was going on, all that.
Yeah, I think that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, it was till later on that we started communicating more about all that stuff. And when she started seeing, because she noticed, you know, someone with outside perspective can notice things about, you know, things that are wrong with you sometimes that you or someone that's around you every day can notice.
I'm glad you found her, man. I think we all need somebody in our life, friends, you know, a life partner, wife, women, you know, husbands, whatever people like, whatever the case may be. But I think we're very social human beings and we need each other in this world.
Absolutely.
What do you currently have going on now?
Right now, like I said, I'm quality manager, like you said in the beginning of the show, at a place we make mortar round components and flare casing. We do DoD contract stuff, and it's kind of neat to see the perspective of what goes into, you know, the military and war and stuff from the civilian side of making these things that are provided to the military for the warfighter, you know. But I'm a quality manager over here, and I oversee, you know, all the quality side of it and communicate with the government on what's going on, what they need, all the requirements. But one of the flare casings we make, it actually is the same one we use on the Blackhawk.
Really?
Exactly the same thing. So I was shocked when I saw, I was like, man, I used to change these things out.
It's crazy how life goes in full circle, right?
No, but I was blessed, man. When I got out here to East Texas, I kind of skipped a lot. So I got out here, I was working, and 2020 came around, you know, COVID, all that, and things were kind of slowing down, and I was about to have to go home. Like our job was about done out here, and I got per diem and stuff. I didn't have no house or nothing. I had a truck payment, and so I just saved the whole time out, the whole 2 years I was doing that job. So I had some money saved up. Like I said, I had met Sarah. I love the area out here in East Texas. It's big pine trees and lakes, and it's just it doesn't look the same as other locations in Texas. It's anybody that's been in Texas, if you've only been in one spot, you haven't seen Texas, you know. But I just love the area out here. And then like I said, I met Sarah, so I was like, I want to stay out here. If I don't do something, I'm gonna leave. So I made the decision. I was like, I'm gonna just quit and I'm gonna find something. I have a degree. I have a good resume. I had that mindset. So I put my 2-week notice in right at the end of one of our last job out here, and I just quit. Didn't have anything lined up. And I was living in my camper. And the next day after my 2-week notice, I took a stack of resumes, and I just went every place that had an opening, that had a job in a field that I wanted to work in. And I put my slacks on. I was just going place to place, trying to figure it out. And I was comfortable because I had some savings and stuff, so I wasn't in a bind. So I did that and ended up getting on at this RV dealership, selling parts. And man, everything that happened out here for me was just like, it was just, I got lucky. I feel like, blessed. And it was a family-owned business. They were just good people, So I worked there for like 10 months. And it never was like a permanent thing for me. I wanted to do something with my degree. I don't want to go to waste. But something popped up at the airport, working on little fixed wing prop planes, Moonies. And I was like, man, I haven't been in aviation for a long time. That sounds like I kind of wanted to get back into it a little bit, like on that, and that just working on planes, not anything else. So I applied to it. Got hired on. I was working around a bunch of veterans. Most of the guys that I worked with are veterans. It felt right. It was, like-minded people, been through some of the similar stuff, turning wrenches on these little planes. It was a neat experience, something different from helicopters. But still at that time, it wasn't my degree. I didn't want to turn wrenches till I was 60 years old, I didn't really plan on not being there for a long time either, but um, something popped up, a job popped up with my degree. It was engineering supervisor, which all I had was college. I had no real world experience in my degree field. I just decided, you know what, I'm going to apply for that job. I'm not going to get that job. I'm going to apply for it. I was just applying for these jobs. I applied for it. Next thing you know, I get a call. Hey, can you come in for an interview? And I was shocked. I was like, really? Like I was honest on my resume. I just have college. Came in and talked to them, and they liked what they heard. They liked, my background and stuff, and they gave me a shot. And that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at today, actually. Been here 3.5 years now. Yeah, man, I've been just blessed with opportunities out here, and everything led me to where I'm at now. The good, the bad, the ugly. I could say there's things I want to change. I wish I could take things back, but I have no regrets as far as my path. All the things that happened in my life happened for a reason, and it led me to where I am today.
I agree with you 100%, man. Damn. I'm proud of you, man, for bouncing back. I truly am, and being resilient. And no matter what happened, you just keep fighting forward. There's some questions I want to ask you, all right, that I just missed, but I just want to bounce back real quick. I see here you have an RCOM with Valor. What'd you get that for?
That was that mission with Danny, playground mission.
Anytime you have a V device on any metal, man, that's a significant thing.
Yeah, wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah. That's what Penny and I talked about. I said a lot of the times when you do something very heroic or distinguished, you don't ask for it. Your number's called that day, and you'd be surprised how many people are willing to step up to that plate and do that job.
Yeah, I think any of the guys in our unit, if they'd been in the position I was in that moment, they would have been in the same situation just for them. I don't think I was pretty confident in our guys. I think we had a good group. In the Medevac over there, and it's just one of those things. Like I said, my number was called that day, and that's just the way it was.
What was your happiest moment in the military? And now at the age of, how old are you now?
36.
Damn, Dereck, you much older now, bro.
Yeah, 36. I'll be 37 this year. Yep. Nice.
What is your happiest moment in the military and your happiest moment in life right now?
So happiest moment in the military, I'd have to say graduating basic training. That was the biggest change in my life at that time. Like I went from, like I said, a little punk kid, teenager, to a soldier. And I saw how proud my parents were of me at that moment. And I felt a sense of pride. And that was think about all the things that's gone on in my military time. That was the biggest moment for me, seeing my parents and how proud they were of me.
I bet you they're still proud of you to this day.
Yeah, I think so.
What about in your life? What is your most proudest moment in life right now?
Getting out of that funk that I was in, and I was going down a bad path, and I was taking people with me, burning bridges, and by the grace of God, I got down on the other side of it. One thing is I never quit. Though there was times I wanted to. Like I said, there was times where I was like, I don't want to be here. And but I kept moving forward, and things happened the way they did. Unfortunate things, but they made me who I am today. They opened my eyes, and then they made me work in the direction to be who I am today. And I'm grateful for everything that life has thrown at me, because I don't think I'd be right where I am without that adversity.
I think that's what life is, man. Putting us through these lessons that I think we all have to go through just to become better people. I think it's very key to success, and it's important for us to grow as men, especially.
Yeah, and everybody's story is different. I just happen to have to do some dumb things and experience some, rough stuff just to get my mind right. And that's the unfortunate thing of it. But everybody has their own story and their own way, but the biggest thing is just keep on moving forward, and there's something good on the other side of it.
What legacy do you want to leave behind for you, your friends, your family?
I want them to know that I was a caring person. I never gave up, and I was always there for them. And if I'm a dad someday, I hope my kids, are proud of me and believe that they learn lessons that were good and it'll lead them where they go in life.
What's the one thing you would tell your younger self?
Slow down, take in the moments, think. A lot of, even in my military time, everything was moving so fast. I just didn't take the time to slow down and take in what I was doing, take in the moments, and next thing you know, you're 36, and all that's behind you.
I agree with you on that, man. I look back and there's so many things I took for granted. I really didn't just sit in a moment and just be there, enjoy it. I do kind of regret that. I do. I don't have a lot of regrets in life, and I don't even call them regrets. I just call them missed opportunities, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't know, and I just missed that opportunity.
Right. You don't know what you don't know. And, that's just unfortunate, but it's the way it goes. And I still catch myself, moving a little fast sometimes, and Sarah will stop me, but I try to take in moments now, like we go on trips every year. We have a camper and we take it out. We'll go out in the mountains and just take it in, go out in the middle of nowhere, or whatever. So it just taking things day by day and slowing down. I think that's important.
3 words to describe yourself.
I'd say dependable, stubborn. My wife will tell you that one. Stubborn. I think I'm dependable though, and I'll be there.
That's a good characteristic to have, being dependable. There's not a lot of people dependable nowadays. They'll tell you they'll do something, but then they don't do it. So being dependable is very important. Share a fun fact about yourself.
Random one. I'm left-handed, For some reason, people think it's crazy every time they run into someone left-handed. They always got to say something. So
you want to hear something crazy, Dereck?
What's that?
I'm left-handed as well.
Hey, there's only a few of us,
I tell I always make the joke, left-handed people, we make 1% of the world's population. And I pride myself on being left-handed because we think, it's a real thing, we think with a different side of our brain. We're just mechanically opposite from everybody, and it's an honor. I love when I meet a lot of lefties because we've all had a struggle with the same things ergonomically growing up in the world, right? Even being a Black Hawk pilot, sitting in a cockpit that was designed for a right-handed person, and I'm left-handed. My whole world is flipped upside down on top of learning how to fly this big piece of metal and all these switches in here.
Yep. Yeah, sitting at those desks in grade school when you got it's over here, it flips up, and you're writing over here like this and get ink all over your side of your hand.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I love being left-handed though. I would not trade that for anything.
Same.
What do you have going on now? Any big projects? Where could people find you?
I wouldn't say big project, but me and my wife, little side hustle, kind of something to do. We have this little online coffee business. We don't actually we have a roaster that roasts them, so we don't actually roast them, but it's online, etxcoffeeco.com. So we're doing that, just kind of little fun side thing to keep us occupied, Other than that, actually, so there's this thing called the Texas State Guard, and I've always been kind of chasing my feeling in the Army. I try to catch myself, but there's thing Texas State Guard, they do some missions in the state of Texas, but they don't carry a gun. It's all like hurricane relief, flood, natural disasters. They go help with that. There's like search and rescue teams, boat teams, and they're actually on the border with the National Guard and all that too. But I ended up joining it last year. I just randomly found it online trying to figure, I was thinking about doing volunteer firefighter, like different things, try to do something similar, not obviously not the same, but similar.
You're trying to get that adrenaline.
Yeah.
You're trying to get that adrenaline rush. That's what you're trying to do.
Yeah. So they follow the AR 670-1, wear the same uniform as the Army. You can wear your federal patches and things. So last year I was like, I'm going to do that. So I joined, and I've been doing that. I went on one hurricane mission last July. So yeah, that's kind of what my little side stuff going on right now. I'll do that and the coffee deal.
What made you and your wife want to start the coffee company?
It's actually me. I was bored one day. I'm always like looking at stuff, and like I just have random ideas all the time. And I saw that there was like this coffee roaster that'll make it, and you label it and ship it and stuff. And it was like real simple. It wasn't like a lot of hassle, or, a business owner typically, they're working 24 hours a day doing all this, probably make no money the first few years. But this is kind of like low, like it doesn't affect us. It's just kind of something fun to do on the side, something to do
How long has that been going on for?
since January, just beginning. So,
Okay. Hey, you may grow a global coffee company, man. You never
hey, you
know.
never know. Yeah.
Right? I think if there's one thing I've learned from your story, anything is possible. As long as you put your mind to it and you're willing to do the work, you could do whatever you want to do in the world, right? You started, just think about where you are now, where you started from. You went from 3,500 people in a small town to going to Afghanistan, hitting rock bottom. Now you're thriving, got a wife, you're doing big things, you're living the life you really want to live. So I think that really that says a lot about who you are and the resilience and your desire to keep fighting forward to make things happen. So you becoming a global coffee millionaire is very likely for you, as long as if that's what you want to do, right?
Yeah. 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 But, I didn't mention this, but I think a big part of me getting out of that slump too, and kind of getting in the mindset I'm in right now. It's still day by day, like I have not every day is perfect. Some days are worse than others, like I still have my moments and my thoughts and things, but, I found God again, I always believed in God. I always was a Christian, but I was about the furthest thing away, that you can be without not believing, and over the past, I guess, 6 months, I really gotten a lot closer, been reading the Bible. I got this thing, it's called it's funny, Action Bible. And it's actually, I think it's for kids. It's like, it's all the Bible stories in chronological order, but it's like with pictures and things, It's super easy to read. I've been reading it kind of to get my mind in it, a little easier. And we started going to church. So October, I talked to my wife and I was like, hey, I really want to try to go to church. I haven't been to church in years, and I never really consistently went to church my whole life. And I was like, I really want to go to church. I was just feeling like I need to go. And she finally was like, yeah, okay, find us a church and we'll go. So I was searching online and all that, trying to find one that fell in line with my beliefs. And we decided one Sunday, we went up there, we did it, and went in there, and it was like immediately felt like I was where I needed to be. And the sermon that day was like directly involved with like depression, anxiety, all these things, and I just felt like that like I was in the right spot that day, and that's where like it was like I had to be there. And at the end of the service, the preacher, he said, if you've been having a tough time, you've been having depression, anxiety, worries, PTSD, whatever, everybody had their heads bowed. We were about to pray, and he's like, you can raise your hand and someone will come around and pray with you. And I don't know, I'm kind of a standoffish. I don't really put myself out there too much, but something just told me, just take my hand up. I raised my hand. And when I raised my hand, I felt my wife raise her hand up too. Cause she had a rough childhood growing up. She lost her parents young and stuff too. So, but, we both raised our hands up, heads bowed, and all of a sudden I feel a hand on my back. Start praying with me. And, man, I was flowing tears, man. I couldn't contain it. And, at that moment I was like, man, why did I put this off so long? So, but yeah, I've been trying to get closer to God, man. And it's brought me and my wife closer, and helping with my marriage. And we go consistently every Sunday now. We don't miss, and try to read the Bible as much as I can. Yeah.
I'm truly proud of you. And I'm going through the same thing right now as well. And there's one thing I will tell you, and I'm learning this. God sometimes will put us through things so we have no other option but to come back home to him.
I 100% agree.
And that's what I'm realizing right now myself, man. Like, damn, something's missing in my life. You know, like I said, he will put you through something to make you realize, like, yo, wake up. Let's it's time to come home now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's why I don't really can't really have any regrets, because everything that happened in my life was for a purpose. All the trials, tribulations, God put you through stuff for a purpose. And that's why I'm saying I don't think I'd be where I am right now without those things, and I think it was all for a reason.
I agree with you 100%. Any final words, man? Anything you want to leave with the audience, myself? Anything? You have the mic, man.
Just, like we were talking about earlier, if you're in a situation like this, like where you're feeling down and out, anything's going wrong, reach out to somebody. Don't try to handle it yourself. Just call somebody, talk to somebody, text somebody, and just let somebody know what's going on. Get help and never quit. Always take it day by day, but always keep moving. And there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
And also for all the guys we deployed with, everybody that watches this, whether we were super close or we just flew together, whatever, I'm on Facebook. It's not hard to get my number. Reach out anytime you want. I don't care what time it is. I'll talk to you. And I miss all you guys, so it'd be good to hear from some of them. And, for you too. I mean, you're doing great things here, man. This is awesome. And I'm learning things about some of these guys that I spent 6 years with, and that I didn't know, and hearing their stories. And I think this is great.
I appreciate that, Dereck. And I want to thank you for taking the initiative, reaching out to me and saying, hey, Jason, I'm ready, man. I want to tell my story. And I was like, absolutely. I didn't even blink an eye. And I appreciate that, your willingness to lead from the front and continue to do that. Even as you keep evolving. And like you said, I'm that person that I feel we're never the same person again. We always continuously have to build on ourselves, and we have to work on it. It's a work in progress every single day. And it begins from waking up to going to sleep, just little things, right? Because as anybody knows that has dealt with depression or other traumatic situations, it's easy just to stay in the bed all day and do absolutely nothing, or lean heavily on those vices that just consume your mind, your energy, your body, and just continue to send you down that spiral. But I want to thank you, man. I was always impressed with you, the way you carried yourself in the Army, hard work. I know we didn't spend a lot of time, but we're still in the same company, same presence. And I could relate with what you just said. Anybody out there that's dealing with anything, there's so many of us that want to be helped. Like, let us be the burden to us. We're okay with that. Trust
Absolutely.
me, we are okay with that. I am fine with calling me 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. We'll make it happen, whatever needs to happen.
And we all have our own lives, and we're all across the United States or wherever. But man, it would be nice to have like a central location in the States. Like, hey, every year people are going to meet here. If you can come. If you can't, don't. Maybe come next year. But I'm so tired of just showing up for funerals, man.
Amen, brother.
It's tough. We have our own lives now. It's just tough.
And that's something I do have planned for Heroes Have Wings, to create that, what you just said, that hub where we all get together, because we're getting older, man.
Yeah.
And we're losing a lot of friends. We just lost another door gunner that was in the Warlords, Stacy Culp. We lost him a few days ago. If there's one lesson we learned in the military, especially being in combat, is that life is not long. We have to embrace and love each other and create these moments and these experiences and memories with each other, because there's going to come a time that, one, we're old and we're by ourselves and we can't create them anymore. And two, our time's going to come. So I agree with you 100%, man. And I'm gonna try my hardest with you and the bunch of the other guys and gals, and I'm going to try to make this happen. But it's like I told Jimmy on his episode that's coming out. We have to stop making the excuse that we're so busy. We have to, because one day we're going to wake up and all we're going to want is that little bit of time.
Yep. Just got to make time.
We just got to make the time for it. And how do we do that? We just plan. That's all we can do. Plan. That's a simple fix to a minor problem. Put it on our calendars. We make it happen.
Yep, that's right.
But Dereck, man, I appreciate everything. Once again, I appreciate you taking initiative, reaching out to me, supporting me. Just continue spreading the word. If you know anybody, hit up Adam. Let him know I would love to have him on the show. I'm going to hit him up on Facebook as well. But let's keep this train rolling, man. We're growing. Slowly but steadily, we're growing. And I hope that I could get as many aviation-centric people on this podcast that I possibly can, just so the world can know our stories and our contribution to society, the things we've done for everybody.
Yeah, I think it's important. I can't wait to see where this goes. This is really, really cool. You took lead on this and started this.
I appreciate that, man. In closing, stay bold, stay fearless. Resilience wins battles. Stories shape legacies. This is Heroes Have Wings. I'll see you next time. I'm your host, Jason Santiago. This is my friend and fabulous guest, Dereck Bible. I appreciate you, brother. And until next time, thank you for tuning in to Heroes Have Wings, where we honor the extraordinary stories of grit, sacrifice, and resilience. Remember, every hero's journey starts with a single step, so take yours today. If you love this episode, like, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, keep pushing limits, breaking barriers, and living your truth. I'm your host, Jason Santiago, and this is Heroes Have Wings, where legends rise.